Today's conversation is going to be about something called social impact bonds. These are a new financing vehicle. They use upfront capital from private investors to finance the delivery of social services that are tied to particular outcomes. And if those outcomes are met in the contracting period, then they will get their investment returned.
There's a lot of talk in the UK about social innovation, social investment, the potential of social impact bonds, but to date it's quite an immature area in some ways. I think we're really interested in the potential for some really innovative work methodologically, new ways of researching and understanding what's happening in this field. So what you then end up with is a three-way relationship. So government is the ultimate payer. The investors will put up the capital to run the service, and a service will use that capital to allow the service to happen to run the service. If they're successful, if they achieve the social outcome, government will pay out, the investors will get their money back. If the outcome isn't achieved, then essentially the investors lose their money. Government pays for outputs. It doesn't generally pay for outcomes. So the idea of moving to an outcomes-based model is quite an innovative, quite a radical move. One of the ideas behind social impact bonds was very much that this was a mechanism to bring in new capital, but also to bring in potentially new providers of services to work in more innovative ways.
Very quickly in the US, what we started to see is a hybridization of the capital. You have a philanthropic investor who basically takes their grant money and simply wants a recoverable, it's kind of like a recoverable loan. But what that's been able to do in the US context is actually to attract more private sector pension funds who want a higher return. And we're trying to really get a sense of kind of where they're trying to spend the money. Like, are they really focused on piloting, like new ideas? Or are they looking on kind of taking new ideas and scaling them up at a higher level? We're seeing in the US that about 90% of the SIBs are really looking at scale. So moving up from piloting, they saw enough initial success that they used the social impact bond to scale that up.
The sense we've got so far in the UK is that actually social impact bonds are probably not fueling truly innovative, original interventions. Quite often what we see is that social impact bonds are taking an intervention that has been tried with one population and been successful and looking at whether it will work with a different population. And of course investors, because of the calculations they are making about risk, want really, really precise understandings of what the risk exposure is. And so you can see how very quickly, if you're in those kind of conversations, very innovative approaches are going to go out of the window. The way contracts are negotiated between government, investors and providers is quite a closed system. It's quite hard to get much transparency and to sort of see those contracts and to understand exactly what those relationships are. And so at the moment it seems quite hard to envisage service users, local communities getting involved in that process. There is a really strong push in the design of public services towards more co-creation and co-production. That seems to be a real limiting factor to SIBs, and also, a limiting factor to them being socially innovative. So we're really interested to explore how, over time, we might develop some mechanisms to bring co-production, co-creation into the mix.
So I think what we need to see is more innovation broadly in terms of testing these models where people do take a certain kind of risk. And this also speaks to what both Chris and I said that's missing in this social impact bond kind of process. It isn't yet to date really been involving people in the community, people who are receiving the services in any kind of systematic way. To me, that's a potential risk in how they've been set up to date, and in terms of the hope of what kinds of outcomes long-term they're going to achieve.